The Around the NFL podcast is breaking hearts, ankles, and records everywhere.
From the Chris Wessling podcast studio, mighty high on our own supply lately with the Zummy drops. It's Around the NFL. My name is Dan Hanzus. I got heroes everywhere I look on this important episode around the AFC. In 48 minutes, Marc Sessler, Gregg Rosenthal, Patrick Claybon back in studio. What's up, gang?
Just glad to be here. This is a tradition. I'm excited. I'll see if I can get tranked a few times. This is one of my favorite parts of the year.
It's a special day. You wake up and the cereal just tastes a little better. Walk to school with your kids in back. The air is just crisper. Football is back.
Well,
I knew we were going to get that.
Yeah. You can't.
This Gregg football.
You're
back
trying to make it a thing, Gregg, and the more you try to make it a thing, the more it repulses Mark and I, because we know football's not back until the second week of February.
It's been a thing we're on like year 9 of this bit. It's going strong.
And yes, before the show, we were learned a couple different things. Claybon to my right, actually, you've heard the cliche, but Patrick wants the world to know he actually did walk uphill both ways to get to and from his school.
That's right.
As a child, and now they've cut a path through the middle of the
easy
brush,
path.
Which made me wonder that sounds great for the kids of today, but that's where, to use the parlance of my times back in New York, the skids would hang out, and the less populated, no cop interference or people looking around, the skids could do what the skids do. Also known as, what do we call them where you guys are from?
They burnouts.
Burnouts.
No chance at
about Massachusetts. What were they known as? Gregg's like, I was one of them. I don't know.
Burnout sounds right.
Burnouts?
Yeah, we did.
Alabama?
We didn't necessarily have a parlance.
Yeah.
There weren't any like creek critters who would hang out on the path.
Creek critters.
It's like with a cane pole.
Arsonists would be another word, I guess, in our town.
The skid. Well, that's different.
It's just a lot of fires.
The only thing the skids really did that I ever clocked was they put one foot up against the side of the Walgreens over the fence from the high school, smoked a ton of cigarettes, listened to a lot of Metallica, and threw snowballs at the normals.
It's very Simpsons.
Did they refer to themselves as the skids?
No,
like,
I would
you're
imagine.
In skid territory
well, that's
now,
why I was
champ.
asking about Gregg. I didn't know because you had the long hair. You were in a goth emo band. Maybe you didn't know what the term was. Maybe you actually were in that crew.
No.
I don't think emos were there wasn't a huge Venn diagram crossover with burnouts. I mean,
but also goth emo usually doesn't cross over, does it? Or maybe it does.
No, I think
plus this is all
starting in Delaware. That
figment of your imagination. No, that they existed. I don't know what the name is. I do remember I was once kicked very hard by one in a hallway in our class.
What did you possibly do to elicit that reaction
like a roundhouse
from
kick?
a student?
Nothing. They were just kind of the types that would just beat up freshmen.
That's what
seniors.
Skids are going to do. What the skids are going to do. It's classic burnout behavior.
Gregg's walking around his middle school. Football's back. It's like March 8th. It's like, we're going to kick you.
Around the AFC in 48 minutes. And this is, like I said, I got a text from none other than Scott Hanson. Okay?
Oh.
Scott Hanson of Red Zone fame.
Yeah, like 7 hours.
No pee breaks.
Which
Never.
you can get on NFL Plus.
Which you can get on NFL Plus, which you can get us on NFL Plus starting next week. Ooh, we better get on that. He wanted to know when Around the AFC and NFC was dropping. It is right now. We're going to go through the entire conference, 3 minutes exactly. And another thing that came up before the show, Mark, you grew up in Connecticut. Also, you did a brief time in England. We've heard it. I don't know how many more times.
It's just
we need to hear
factual,
it.
biographical information.
Right, but I know it now that you've had kids. What do they remember from years 0 to 3? Nothing, right? And I'm just saying.
Get a tight shot at Mark's
I
looking
went
at
there at
Greg
age
like
3.
he
You
literally
went
wants
there
to
at 3.
kill him.
I
I
don't
went
have.
there from age 3 to 6. You
Okay,
clown.
I take it back.
Greg
I thought it was
diminishes
0 to
Mark's
3.
childhood.
He always says 3.
Mark, there was a mimosa stabber where you grew up.
It was a section of my. This is not in England. This was back when I lived.
know,
Yeah, on
in
the East
Connecticut,
Coast.
yeah.
Like a section of our town was called Mimosa, like a neighborhood, and there was someone called the Mimosa.
Someone was a little stabby in that area.
stabbed a girl.
And that, well, see, now you made it real, and now it feels like not something I could even make light of anymore.
I think you
but
can.
Now I
she
will.
was fine. She escaped.
She
Yeah,
survived.
She escaped.
not mortal injuries. Good. Another weapon is the one held in the hands of our producer, Eric Roberts, who for the first time, and the gravedigger, Justin Graver, did so many things well for us during his tenure as super producer, but nothing better than shooting Gregg right in the old throat with a trank, or any of us for that matter, when we went over the allotted 3 minutes, okay, and broke the rules of this hallowed game. So, Eric, are you feeling nervous? Like Aaron Rodgers playing his first preseason game in 6 years, like he admitted he had butterflies. I imagine that's the similar case for you.
It's a big responsibility. It is. I don't want to, tarnish the authenticity. The timer is the timer. So I will be stern and quick.
Well, plus he's playing hurt, so those tranks might not be totally accurate.
Don't use the right hand. It's going to affect the accuracy. No
I've
doubt.
become a little ambidextrous here, so I gotta.
We have a role in that too, though, because I thought in the last couple times we've done this exercise, like someone gets fired point blank in the middle of their forehead with a so-called dart, and they keep talking.
Right. You're right. On this side of the glass, you got to respect the trank.
Built up a tolerance to the, whatever the medical instrument is over the time.
And Graver got a little trank crazy in the final episodes. I think he started to lose his mind from us talking too much over it. So let's try to be respectful of the time allotment, because this, if we do it right, this should be over in exactly 48 minutes plus 3 timeout breaks. That we only have 3. Clock management is important. Why don't we get it going? Here we go. We're going to start in the AFC East. Hit it, Eric. Buffalo Bills. Gregg.
All right. I want to know what Sean McDermott has in store with this defense. When you look at what happened with Leslie Frazier leaving, now working with us, it was a little strange. I think Sean McDermott wanted control of his defense. And you look at a team that I don't think the window is closing in any way, but in terms of this defense, Jordan Poyer, Tre'Davious White, Teron Johnson, Micah Hyde. That, to me, is the Buffalo Bills under Sean McDermott, what's made them really interesting and consistent. They've been together for 5 years. That doesn't happen. That's the core of this team, this defense. They've been as consistent as any defense in the NFL. They don't get Von Miller back for 4 or 5 weeks, but I think Sean McDermott wanted to shake things up, and I do wonder, does he have one great Buffalo Bills defense with all this continuity, all these great players, Matt Milano, some good guys up front, Ed Oliver, Greg Rousseau, like one great defense to shut everyone up about the whole Buffalo Bills losing their steam? They could do it on the defensive side.
I mean, you don't have Von Miller for the start of the year because of PUP, but you are right. There's a lot of consistency here. I always wonder, like, when you lose a coordinator, I think Leslie Frazier was underrated in that role in Buffalo, and part of why they were what they were. You lost Brian Dable a year ago, no Leslie Frazier, and sometimes I think McDermott can handle it because he's been doing this for so long. But when you're the head coach that has to suddenly call the defense on top of it, comes not always the smoothest transition.
And I think, and it's something that Pep Hamilton pointed out as last week we were getting ready for Game Day Live. Glad to have him. Glad to have Coach Frazier come over. Well, Leslie Frazier allowed Sean McDermott some leniency in terms of how much attention he played to the defense. That's gone. I wonder how the change in the offense comes with Ken Dorsey. Are they going to run the ball more? Are they going to be a little more complimentary? Now that the head coach is calling the defense, if he's going to, just because it's something that people do, pay more attention to the way that the offense does to facilitate better defensive success, now that he's the person that has to own it.
We all had McDermott in the safe grouping when we did Hot Butts. I still feel that way. Did get some pushback on social media that McDermott should be seen as guy maybe a little bit warmer. If the defense has a bad year, the team falls short, would he ever be in danger? I don't think so, but I do think there's pressure on McDermott, like you're saying, Gregg, to really build something up here on D.
Well, and Ken Dorsey's entering the second year, and I think he did a good job for the most part last year. They declined when Josh Allen got hurt. There's been some interesting things this preseason. I like what Dalton Kincaid's looked like. Trent Sherfield's their number 3. There's no reason to me why they should be viewed any differently entering this year than a year ago. They're healthier.
I think there's no team in the AFC with kind of more of a tight butt pressure on them, where it's like anything less than 13 wins in an AFC title game appearance does not fly.
Got to get there. This is the year. You got to get there.
Beautiful.
The Miami Dolphins. There is a general assumption that the Dolphins offense was good last year, even great. and for the majority of the season with Tua at the controls, it was. However, a closer examination of the game log might give you a little bit of pause. After a Week 12 win over the Texans, got them to 8-3. They lost 5 straight. You saw all their numbers come down. Teams changed their scheme, played more press coverage, messed with what Mike McDaniel likes to do, messed with the timing of the offense. Then Tua got hurt, disappeared. They went one and done in the playoffs. I think the offense is going to be very good. I think the defense is in some ways more compelling with Vic Fangio there. But I'm just curious, did the league catch up to McDaniel's scheme at the end of last year? And if so, can McDaniel make the necessary tweaks to ensure a high-octane attack doesn't putter out this time around?
Man, I thought like the Jordan Rodrigue podcast series about this crew of offensive dudes, like the Shanahan to McDaniel tree. I don't think there's catching up because they're working so hard week to week to recreate what they do and do it in a different way. And, I mean, we've seen with Shanahan's scheme, which this so much is, that it isn't so much a catch-up. It's like you're always ahead of it. And I think that McDaniel, if anything, last year would have been the growth year. And there was no growth. They were explosive right out of the gate. And you're still talking about how do you deal with their speed. Their speed is something you're going to have to deal with no matter what the scheme is.
I think he's the guy that Kyle Shanahan never wanted to let go. I think he almost held some of McDaniel's personal struggles as leverage to keep Mike McDaniel in his pocket. And so I'm very curious, to your point, sort of what Mike McDaniel is going to do for a second act, because maybe a little like Andy Reid, and certainly Andy Reid earlier in his career, but I think he's going to come out with a lot of different stuff, and he's got the speed, as you mentioned, to make it hurt. I'm not worried about Mikey McD.
Yeah, and it's not his first year coaching anymore. And we see offenses go through lulls sometimes. And it just so happened that the Dolphins' lull on offense coincided with, at the end of it, their quarterback getting hurt. And we never got to see them work their way out of it.
Armstead's got to be healthy, though.
Yeah. When he was not in there last year. Don't you think, Dan, like one place you could grow is like the ground game, which was such a Shanahan staple, like was not really as much of a difference maker in Miami last year. I think that's something you can add to the offense and make it more balanced.
I thought one more note, because you can't have a Dolphins conversation without talking about Tua's health. Read this in the Football Almanac, Cal Clinton. Big hits on a QB are a part of the Shanahan system. The way they do the play action, it asks your running backs to do a lot of heavy lifting and tight ends on edge rushers and linebackers. So when you look at San Francisco's QB injuries, you connect the dots there. Look at what happened with Tua. He's a guy that's vulnerable to start with. In the scheme, he's even more so. I hope he's healthy. I hope Mike White, if he comes in, can push the ball downfield, because that's not really his thing. Was I too negative there? I don't know.
No.
I think we're being almost too... Oh.
The first one felt good, not going to lie.
Patrick, the Jets.
All right, so a lot of questions have been answered about this team already. Mekhi Becton earns that starting job at right tackle, which felt like it turned it into a necessity versus earlier in the offseason when we thought it was a little bit more of a luxury. They get Dalvin, which gives them some Brees insurance as he's working his way back from that Week 7 ACL tear. My only question is, we've seen such an egalitarian Aaron Rodgers the entire offseason. The opening schedule for the Jets, you start off with the Bills, and then there's the Cowboys, the Patriots, the Kansas City Chiefs. If things don't start out well, because it was full-on Nate Hackett defense, like where does the conversation go if the start is a little slower? And again, I expect them to be good, but what if the start is slow?
You get a little RELAX, relax vibe from Aaron Rodgers, possibly, because that schedule, especially for the offense, is especially brutal those first couple weeks. And I'm much more worried about the offense. I do wonder if Aaron Rodgers has enough support. Like, you think, okay, Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson, that's incredible. It is, but two players do not make an offense, and I just don't assume that Lazard or Hardman or the offensive line or the running backs or the coach are better than average anywhere else. So, like, you have a great quarterback and a great number one. I believe everything else offensively, I have questions. They might be able to answer them, but I think people are assuming they have more talent on offense than they really do.
Questions around Brees Hall are fair, coming off the ACL, but you have Cook and Brees Hall. That's pretty damn good.
It's fine.
Oh, okay.
I think it's good.
I think it's
better than fine.
I guess you're right.
It'd be great, by the way.
It could be great.
Yeah.
But if you put it up against all the other running back groups in the league and their run blocking, it's fine.
Their defense is going to be so good this year that I think that's going to help too. Like the offense doesn't need to be studly, because when you have that defensive line and the back end of the secondary led by Sauce, and to the point of look at the top of their schedule, and I get it, it's a gauntlet. Like the old Bengals mantra from last year, they got to play us too. Like the Jets are a tough team to beat. I don't imagine they're going to come out of there 0-4 or 1-3.
Though I think there was no more dominant position group through the entire preseason than New York's defensive line. Yeah. They're so deep, and that side of the ball in those meetings, they kept saying it. We're going to keep this offense in games, and they are. And I think that we've seen Aaron Rodgers go through periods and stretches where he didn't have immense talent around him, and he still made it happen. And I think he's at least with people that he knows and that he's comfortable with, and you're getting the best kind of mental version of Aaron Rodgers. He's also like a corrector, and he gets moody and stuff. So I do. Though my only thing is if psychologically it does not look great after a month, does this feel good thing kind of wear off, and then you're in the middle of a battle? What happens then?
That's the NFL season, though. But every team's going to go through it, unless it's just like a dream year. They're going to have a 2-week stretch where everyone's getting on them.
And the schedule softens up after that.
And maybe they win 4 of those games.
Timeout. First timeout.
Whoa.
Little Hard Knocks talk. First, they plug. Colleen and I did our 4th episode, the penultimate episode of the Hard Knocks podcast, which you could catch in this feed whenever you like. You did see Aaron Rodgers get fired up in practice and angry. As a Jets fan, it was nice to see that the Snoopy Bowl and Rodgers calling it Jet Life Stadium, and really feeling like for the first time since the Rex era, pre-Victor Cruz, it feels like it could also be the Jets town, which it doesn't matter to most people, but if you're a football fan in that region, this idea and feeling like you're about to take over the town, which hasn't happened there since Victor Cruz went 99 on Christmas Eve.
I mean, the Giants have left the door pretty wide open for you the last 7 or 8 years.
We weren't ready to walk in the door.
No one was ready to go through.
But yeah, that was interesting. And you have some of the smack talk, just getting after Jihad Ward, the former 2nd-round pick, Rodgers. That was some good stuff.
Bro, what the is that? Respect, bro. Come on, what the is that? 5 goddamn steps? I don't even know who you are, bro. I don't know who you are. You don't? I never heard of you. Let's go.
Like Jihad Ward saying, "I don't know who you are." That's a comeback.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the battle, you just repeat what the person said to you, even though it makes no sense.
As soon as it left his lips, he probably wanted that one back.
Rodgers like, what? All right, time in to the New England Patriots closing out the AFC East. Marc Sessler.
All right, I ask you this. Do you still believe in Bill Belichick as the best coach in today's NFL? And if he is, how does he steer this weird offensive roster through the dark thicket of the AFC East and beyond? Great defense. We get it. But I see the worst QB in the division, all right? The lowest gaggle of wideouts, a banged-up offensive line with issues at tackle, and 0 X factor on this side of the ball. Where are we 6 months from now? And if things go south, to conspiracy theories around the idea of, as corporals like to say, sunsetting Bill Belichick as Patriots coach become a reality. And if Belichick can be fired, what stops 1,000 alien crafts from invading next? That would be a very strange world we live in, but it seems more possible than ever before. If you're not a Patriots fan, this is the most interesting Patriots season ever.
Mark's still trying to get Belichick back to Cleveland.
And he's still trying to get the aliens invading. I think Belichick's answer would be, or at least mine as a homer, what he has up his sleeve is that defense. If he's still got it, it has to show up in this defense, because he's been building up this defense to this moment for about 3 years, and they're kind of fully formed. They've got some really young, intriguing players like Christian Barber. They have guys who have been there for a long time, Wise and Larry Guy, and the 3 safeties. You got Kyle Duggar. You have the 2 Joneses at cornerback. You love this rookie cornerback. Like, if they can still make a difference on defense, this is the time. This is Belichick, because offensively, maybe you're right, but that's not going to be his ballywick. He's hoping to be 22nd on defense, I think, on offense.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's punting on Bill Belichick in general, I think, but maybe you bring Andy Reid into the conversation and you look, because a part of being, a good coach is developing a staff around you. And the decision with Matt Patricia was just so baffling for everybody. It's kind of like, well, hey, Bill can't always do everything all of the time. And so I think the team is going to be good. They're clearly going to be better, and it kind of gets restored. But it's hard to erase what was a disastrous mistake in 2022. It still goes on the list, and it makes me wonder.
And I think part of this is just recalibrating expectations of what the Patriots are and what comes out of a season for them, because we're still living in the after effects of 9 Super Bowls in 18 years or whatever. And yeah, I think they're a middle of the road team. And I think Belichick still has it. There was no medical incident that we know of. The Patricia move was baffling, but I think he's going to coach up the D, and they're going to win probably between 6 and 9 games. And the world will go on.
The schedule is so much tougher. If they only win 6 or 7 games, I don't think he'd be back next year.
Had they gone and got like DeAndre Hopkins, you've got and he is what we think he is. You got a starting guy. I think everyone's being pushed up the charts a little bit, where you're not really where you should be slotted as wide receiver on the team. Got a bunch of guys, but it's like who scares you if you're a defensive coordinator going against this offense? This doesn't work in 2023.
That's the idea, I think, is Ramondre and old Zeke.
They can't be worse.
Should we take a timeout here and talk a little?
Take it, Greg.
I don't know.
Step on it.
No, actually, it's a TV timeout because it's the end of the quarter, so we can do it without blowing it to you.
What does that even mean?
It's the end of the first quarter.
Well, I was going to take a timeout and talk a little Zappy.
You don't have to. They're in a TV timeout, so it's great. The timing worked out for us.
Dan's trying to save the timeouts right now.
He did not approve. He did not approve of your
Dan
timeout.
has planned all 3 timeouts. I thought we're doing a little cut down recap.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's Zappy.
It's a TV timeout.
Yeah, Zappy. In terms of like having things planned out, I think the fact that they cut Bailey Zappi and he made it through waivers and now he's their practice squad backup quarterback, and I assume he'll be elevated if they don't find another quarterback. But it does make it feel like they're still winging it here on offense.
If I'm Mac Jones, I'm pretty pumped up about Bailey Zappi's summer because it removed any heat around him having to play for his job in September and everything.
Well, why was there heat from Bailey Zappi anyway?
There never was, except from the most basic of Patriots fans.
I saw a guy wearing a jersey at a game last year.
People that are paying tickets to go to the game, Greg.
Right, yeah. They were the most basic of like WEEI listeners who thought this guy had a future when Mac Jones had a nice little rookie year. And Bailey Zappi was never a threat. It was almost a shot from Belichick to that guy.
I mean, Bailey Zappi came in and destroyed the Lions and beat the Browns, and then came in off the bench against Mac Jones when Mac Jones, had problems.
He had moments.
Looked great for a couple minutes. Then he melted against the Bears. But that's not that crazy that a fan base would start to go in New England would start to go over wild for a late round white quarterback.
Sure, it's not crazy that
the old late round white quarterback
that any fan base goes for like a backup, but they were
Look
they
at
were
Greg's
wrong.
white T-shirt right now.
So
it's a little tight in the pec area.
Oh wow.
And the sleeves. It's almost like he's sized down.
It's preseason.
You sized down?
Maybe I'm just sizing up.
There we go. Set him up for that one.
It's preseason. You got to get the
look at the fit on
shirts in where you can.
It's a nice fit.
Let's just run through a couple interesting. There were a couple of backup quarterbacks.
TV timeout's almost over. They're coming back and
okay. Jonathan Taylor on PUP. We know he's out for 4 weeks. That might.
Colts have really handled that beautifully.
Some kicker trades. Will Lutz to the Broncos. That's fun. Nick Folk to the Titans. That's fun. Your boy Cade York on the Titans practice
Not
squad.
my boy.
Still no Chris Jones and Nick Bosa updates. Albert O to the Eagles.
Yeah.
Von Miller, we mentioned at
because
the
Eagles traded for him, it's perceived as if they got a young Travis Kelce in this deal, and it's like, all right, we get it. You all love the Eagles and everything they do.
Kyle Allen is the big
echo chamber.
I love that for the Eagles.
All right, we're back. AFC North starting with not me, right?
Yes.
Me, the Bengals. No team. Oh, let's get the whistle. No team has ever won the AFC North 3 years in a row. Did you know that?
Did not know that.
I believe the Bengals are fixing to make history. They nearly won the Super Bowl with their Cinderella run in 21, then fell short of the big game last season, even though they had the better team last year. That's funny how sports work. They bring the bulk of their core back. They're a little worse at tight end. They're potentially a lot better at left tackle with Orlando Brown. Deep, talented, battle-tested roster. Superstar quarterback in his prime as long as his calf is okay. He's not practicing yet.
He did today.
Good. Excellent.
Finally.
If the offensive line and Burrow hold up physically, this is the number 1 seed in the AFC. And that ain't a question. That's a fact, Jack.
I'd like to see this. They came out of the gate last year 0-2. The Burrow calf thing, I mean, just because it's like the kind of injury where like you're just sort of sitting there with your fingers crossed that it doesn't resurface on some level.
I'm working under the assumption that they played this smart and gave him extra time to get right.
Did.
And
they
hopefully,
did. So yeah, hopefully they did. But
nobody wants to see Joe Burrow get hurt.
He also doesn't have a contract, which may be part of
that should come out in the next couple days. That needs to be
But you have the Browns.
done.
You have the Browns in week 1 and the Ravens in week 2. These are huge games right away for a team that, I mean, I think, number one, you have Lou Anarumo back. That is consistency. I love that for them. He could have been hired away. But you lost a major chunk of your secondary. I kind of like the pieces they put in there. But there's some moving parts. I don't love what's happening with Jonah Williams at right tackle. And you mentioned the thin situation at tight end. I mean, there are some changes on this roster that leave some questions.
They're a little thin. They're certainly thin at tight end. The running back room has questions. I love the defense. I love Cam Taylor-Britt, how he played at the end of last year. They get Uzie back. So that's actually a big addition. I mean, that's their best cornerback. I think they're confident in Dax Hill in his second year. Like, getting Anarumo back, it really does feel like him back, the continuity on defense, the relative youth and experience combination. Like, they, to me, are the most window team right now. Not that they'll go away in any way, but, like, you're not going to have T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Tyler Boyd ever again. This is Tyler Boyd's last year in Cincinnati.
I just can't help but get over, like, I'm trying to get over the fact that Jesse Bates played 98% of the snaps last year. Von Bell played 99% of the snaps last year. They had so much. I don't think we could just, like, hand wave that away. We know the offense has been very good. It's going to continue to be good. But the secondary made so many plays.
But, like,
I can't get
I guess
over
my
that.
question would be, who was Von Bell before he was with this team? Not that he's not a talented guy, but this team, to me, can help make these players play well.
They've done a good job developing guys and setting up for the next guy to come in. And I guess it's a little bit of faith in the Bengals operation, which is bizarre to say. But we'll see. They could take a step back. There's no doubt about it. And Brian Callahan's also back at OC. Their defense last year, plus 51 second-half point differential.
Wow.
Plus 70 if you include the 3 playoff games. Captain Lou. The Pittsburgh Steelers, Gregg Rosenthal.
All right, we've given the young offense a lot of love. They're primed. We can get to them if you want. But it's been a minute since Mike Tomlin had a difference-making defense, and I think he's got a chance this year. It's one of the reasons why I think Mark's 12-win prediction is looking great right now, because the offense is fun, but the defense has T.J. Watt in his prime, Cameron Hayward still playing at a very high level, Alex Highsmith, a great second pass rusher who got some money. We've loved what we saw out of Nick Herbig. Marcus Golden, like, this is a pass rush with some good guys up front too that could be one of the better groups in the league. And I want to see it from Tomlin. Tomlin, we talk about as a potential future Hall of Fame coach. He is great on overall, but he's also a defensive guy. And I think this defense is what really could put them over the top and compete with Cincinnati to win this.
Don't you think also, like, where Patrick Peterson might not work out somewhere else, I have a feeling he's going to work out in Pittsburgh. Joey Porter, I was pushing for that draft pick the entire time. You mentioned Harbig. I think, like, you're starting to see depth. This is a team that found a way to win without T.J. Watt for the vast majority of last season. You got him back. We love the offense. Like, I just think 12 wins in this division is not out of control because Tomlin doesn't do things other than win 9 games plus every season.
I think 12 wins is out of control.
It is not out of control.
With the Cincinnati Bengals in the division and no dog in the division, I don't think. I think 12 is a lot to ask.
It's out there, but I think it's very possible. There's not a big weakness on this team.
12 might not be enough to win the division. It could be that competitive. Looking at things, the Matt Canada situation, he's gotten so much criticism, but I think that the success has been relative to what they've had on offense, and we saw towards the end of the year where Kenny Pickett started to figure things out. I don't see a problem with it. Overall, I think the offense will be fine. As Greg said, they're young and exciting. A really good team. I don't think 12 is.
Think of their red zone offense. Like, they added Darnell Washington, like the tight end, this massive-bodied human that looks bigger than anyone else around him. Like, I think they're going to be dangerous. I'm with you. I think Canada got over some of his issues potentially.
Well, I love the depth because Freiermuth is a great starter, and then you have a nice backup. Like, Najee Harris is a solid starter. You have a great backup in Warren. I think Pickens needs to go to another level for this to be a great team. Like,
obviously, I'm in the minority here. It feels like this room thinks the Steelers are going to be a superpower this year. I'm just not ready to go there yet. And you guys,
I don't even know if I like them more than the Ravens.
Throw all you want if they're 7-1 in October, but we'll see.
I'm not with 12 wins because I'm confident the rest of the division is so good.
I like the first 2 weeks. They have home versus San Francisco, home versus Cleveland. If you are a big-time team, 2 dubs.
They learned to win close games at the end of last year with Pickett too. I just think, like, something about them, like, because I think the way Pickett threw in the preseason, like, if none of that happened, I'd be in a different place.
And look out, San Francisco, Cleveland. You get 2 wins then, at Vegas, at Houston.
Very nice.
Baltimore Ravens, Marc Sessler.
All right, the Ravens are, widely seen as a playoff team. In a post-Gregg Roman world, we're about to witness the unveiling of Todd Monken's offense with a better group of wideouts on paper than Lamar Jackson's ever enjoyed. And yet, reports out of camp, somewhat iffy on the new offense. What if Gregg Roman knew that a pass-happy attack wouldn't work with his QB? There are holes on defense. It's going to take more than Jadeveon Clowney to save the day rushing the passer. I think that the cornerback position is a hospital room. The Ravens are seen as a legit contender, but I'm not sure they're unquestionably better than anyone in their own division, much less the Chiefs, Bills, Jaguars, or Chargers, or the rest of the AFC East. Am I too down on this team?
Well, you're questioning that Gregg Roman doesn't know anything, which is now stated fact that Gregg Roman is bad, and he's holding the Ravens back in full. Patrick, go ahead.
Well, where's Gregg Roman coaching now? I'm sure Gregg Roman is an exceedingly hot coaching commodity, and somebody
Let's
snatched
look at
him
Gregg
up
Roman's
to lead
career
their
credentials,
offense.
which aren't bad at all either.
No, they're certainly not. But there were players that were a part of that as well. And I think if Gregg Roman thought that they couldn't pass the ball, then having Pat Ricard run 20-yard dig routes might have been a questionable decision at the time.
They didn't have any receivers last year,
well,
to be fair.
Because to be honest, right, people look at wide receiver production. The highest snap percentage that Hollywood Brown ever had in this offense was 80%. The reason Lamar wasn't targeting receivers a lot, you just didn't get receivers on the field that much in terms of the offense. I think the offense will be successful regardless, but it gives them the capacity to do more. They might have topped out with Gregg Roman, and I just personally feel like if he was offering that much, then he would be somewhere.
I agree, just because his offenses tended to have shelf lives. It happened in San Francisco too, where it really got a little stale towards the end there. I think they're the highest ceiling team in this division.
Really?
I mean, I guess they'd be tied with the Bengals, but to me, they have a chance to have a top 3 offense. But it could really not work, and it could also take a while to get going because there's so many new pieces. And you mentioned the huge questions on defense, where I just don't see edge rushing. Like they're not getting anything out of David Ojabo, by the way, in preseason. Like there are certain things that you can call from preseason, and you mentioned the cornerback room. Like there are major questions. I just think they're boom or bust. Like they could be 12 wins or they could be 7 wins.
Top 2 offense in the league since Lamar entered the league when he's playing. Worst offense in the league when they don't have Lamar.
Tyler Huntley's still on the roster, by the way.
That, Greg, I
was wrong
that's
about
a bit of a
that one.
disappointment for you because you were.
No, well, we'll see over the next week. I still think he might get traded.
I mean, if Gregg Roman couldn't make it work with Tyler Huntley, come on now.
Well, we wanted it to work with Josh Johnson. I'm curious about this line too. Ronnie Stanley's like another boomer bust guy. Like, yeah, it sounds great to have Ronnie Stanley back. He wasn't quite Ronnie Stanley last year, and he doesn't stay on the field for 16 games.
The Cleveland Browns with Patrick Claybon.
Okay, so we just went through this division, and we discussed a team in the Pittsburgh Steelers that has Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. Of course, all of the additions that the Ravens have made at wide receiver, Zay Flowers, Odell comes in to go with Rashad Bateman, and then T. Higgins and Jamar Chase don't even need to be mentioned. The Cleveland Browns come in with a 22nd ranked passing offense last year. They paid the quarterback all of that money, and their wide receiver 2 is a Jets throwaway, or now I'm blanking on DPJ.
Yep.
Also, is that enough to properly even evaluate this off? Do the Browns have enough talent at wide receiver to make this work?
I think it was, they came into the offseason with that as one of their clear positional need. If Elijah Moore is like what all the hype says he is. And I think that's like a real question mark at this point because they're talking about like he's doing a lot of jet sweep stuff and all this other business. So it's like, is he what they want at wide receiver? I think Cedric Tillman, the rookie, there's some promise there. They have Bell from a year ago. It's like, if these guys work out, you've got a room. Amari Cooper seems like it can still play to me. You have to like factor in David Njoku to some degree there. He's a big part of that attack. But I think it's a wait and see. It's a wait and see because also who has Deshaun Watson shown true chemistry with? There's no evidence of that so far, except other side of Njoku.
If they don't work out, I mean, I don't think it's the receivers because I just think they're a model of a team that gets great pass protection and great run blocking, and that's what makes the receivers work, kind of like Green Bay used to be, kind of like the Patriots used to be in the right year, that a great quarterback can elevate your wide receivers if you have great protection, a great running game. the problem is, like, there's no expectations of Deshaun Watson to be a great quarterback. Like, he should be elevating everyone. People are kind of hoping that he's back to being above average.
So there's no expectation?
I mean, of him to be great, of him to, like, make his receivers great, him to be a top 5 type of quarterback, I think that would be a surprise. Yeah, maybe it'll happen.
I think it's
He was
the
doing it
it's
with
like
Kiki
the,
Coutinho.
it's one of the question marks hanging out there
Sure.
where they're like the Browns thought they were getting
My
that.
point is, with that line, a line that good and a good quarterback can make the receivers, and the receivers aren't terrible.
And what we're doing our season preview and predictions next week. Like, yes, this could all go terribly for the Browns, and a lot of it hinges on the QB as much as you don't want to simplify it. But yeah, there is the other side of it where he plays really well, and there's a lot of pieces here on both sides of the ball. And I wonder if this is the year you finally get that Defensive Player of the Year from Myles Garrett. And Nick Chubb, is he going to be more active in the passing game? And we see another dimension to the offense in that realm. You know, Mark, I love David Njoku. Maybe he's a Pro Bowl guy this year with a full year with Watson. There's reason for optimism.
I think a huge factor is that Jim Schwartz is just like, if you're Myles Garrett, you're Zadarius Smith. This defense is uncomplicated. Just go rush the quarterback. And like Myles Garrett is set up for a Defensive Player of the Year type situation.
Oh,
That was so fast.
got him right in the jugular.
Been shot twice.
Got your ace right in the jugular. Let's take a break. Halftime. But before we hit a break, I want everyone to know. Sam Spence, NFL Films. Yes, around the NFL and NFL Plus together in 2023. We're going to have 2 shows, a Monday game rewatch, our game of the week. Thursday, we're going to have all sorts of your favorite ATN segments and other surprises, all in bite-sized form. And I want to put this on the radar. And this, Patrick, this is important because I don't even know if you know about this, Patrick.
We're finding stuff out today.
And you are in the ATN family. Patrick doesn't have a windscreen on his mic, and it's freaking me out, man. The Thursday ATN NFL Plus show. We're going to have the fans involved. We want the fans to submit video entries that we will react to. The crazier, the better, Mark. We want you to let your freak flag fly and share your opinions about the NFL, questions you have to us, not the one about would you fight tiny 1,000 ducks or giant one duck. None of that
Who
stuff.
survives on an island?
No
Yeah,
desert
none of
island
that.
survival
That's
stuff.
cliche.
But be a part of the show. We know how creative our listeners are. We're setting you loose to be a part of our Thursday NFL Plus show.
Yeah, we've got fleets of musicians, actors, actresses, female musicians, male
Female
musicians,
assassins.
female assassins. Like these are talented individuals who have a voice, and it's like if you don't have NFL Plus, you're walking around your neighborhood like that loser that when you're driving by, you're just a loser's walking.
Oh,
down
look,
the-
it's a loser.
It's a loser.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that the mimosa stabber? Feeling stabby, Chris? Anyway, this is how you get in touch with a video entry. ATN Fan of the Week at gmail.com. Send in your videos. Don't make them too long. That will work against you.
Crisp.
Crisp, tight, creative, fun. And if they're good enough and they tickle our fancy, it will be on our show. Everybody wins.
Everybody.
Everybody.
That's incredible.
ATN plus NFL Plus coming your way starting next week. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. And we move on now into the third quarter of Around the AFC in 48 minutes to the AFC South. Interesting little division. And let's start with Gregg Rosenthal and the Tennessee Titans.
Okay, I look at the Titans' defensive line, really their defense as a whole. I see a good group. I see a pretty loaded group up front. And then I look at the 3 big names on this roster that people know the best. Ryan Tannehill. Can he give us one more surprise? People always think Tannehill's, just a mediocre quarterback. He's been a good quarterback there. DeAndre Hopkins, can he get that second-team boost for a Hall of Fame case? And Mike Vrabel, if he's really one of the best coaches in the league, which we were all saying halfway through last year and the year before when he won the Coach of the Year, if they're all that good, why not go win the division, Tennessee Titans?
Man, you hate the Jaguars.
I do not.
You do.
I just don't.
You're looking for a reason to pick anyone else other than the Jaguars, and now you've settled on the Titans.
I just don't think there's some huge separation when the Titans were destroyed by injuries, including at quarterback,
True.
and had a lead over a Jaguars team and who struggled to beat the Titans and Josh Dobbs, by the way, in the game that really ultimately decided the season.
I got a problem with what you're talking about, though, because I think Vrabel is that guy.
If he's that guy, he's got the defense. He's got some
but
players.
He also has the worst offensive line in football, and that's how Ryan Tannehill got hurt a year ago. Was just beaten up week after week. Then you're looking at what, Malik Willis or Will?
Sneaky old Ryan Tannehill.
Right.
Up there a little bit.
No, but Tannehill can still play. But there is another world where maybe Derrick Henry hit the wall. I mean, hope not. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins is like late period Julio Jones versus the last version we saw of Hopkins. So it's like in those situations, you've got one of the thinnest wideout groups in the league, the worst offensive line in football, and a lot of other questions on that side of the ball. So you need your defense to hold teams to 9 or 10 points.
Well, just on the O-line quickly, they had the worst offensive line in the league, I would say, over the last 2 to 3 years. And it might be the worst now. It's a lot of different players. It's different coaching. And so you're right that they need to creep closer to average there. But they do have a top 10 pick. They have a guy they paid a lot, a left tackle. They have different, healthier players. So they're hoping, and you're right, that's in their way.
Yeah, and the Tannehill injury did so much to our perception of the team because it happened at a point in the year. Derrick Henry could have easily led the league in rushing again last year, but the offense just fell off such a cliff. You put Malik Willis in a situation where he probably shouldn't have even been playing at that point, and he had to play at meaningful time in meaningful games. It was just a bad situation. I'm not saying it because I have questions about the Jags too. They might be Gregg's exact questions, but I think it's way early to write Tennessee off considering what they had last
They've been
year.
trying to write off Tannehill his whole career.
I like
Nice
Ryan
little career,
Tannehill.
Nice little career.
I like Tannehill. I've been speaking with regret about banging the under on this team because of figures like Tannehill and Henry and Vrabel. However,
Jeffrey Simmons.
Is there a higher variance with a 1-2 wide receiver combo than Hopkins, who could be cooked or could be good? And Treylon Burks, who's entering year 2. He's back at practice, which is good this week. But they need him to really kind of fulfill his draft potential. If those guys flop, the offense has nowhere to go beyond Henry. Up next, the Indianapolis Colts. Oh, the Colts. Maroon. Marc Sessler.
All right, we get the whole Jonathan Taylor thing, a disaster. We've spent a lot of time on that. Let's peer elsewhere. What's a positive? If you're Shane Steichen, you might have the most intriguing player in the entire division in Anthony Richardson. But this is a quarterback with 393 college attempts. All right, just 13 starts. An outrageous 53.8 completion percentage. These are major outliers. The closest comp would be Trey Lance, who had 318 college attempts. Jalen Hurts, Steichen's masterpiece, still had 1,000+ throws in college with a nearly 70% completion percentage his senior year. It wasn't like this guy that couldn't play turned into a player. So I am genuinely excited to see Richardson. But do we trust this hot and cold organization to handle the development of this extremely unusual specimen?
I trust Shane Steichen. I don't trust the organization because I think the organization is the problem with Jonathan Taylor right now. The fact that they were reportedly asking for Jalen Waddle plus picks for Jonathan Taylor
It means they didn't want to make it happen.
They actually, it made me think they want to give him the front office wants to give him the contract he wants, but ownership isn't ready to swallow its pride yet. And it's like maybe they can make it happen, but without Taylor, man, even if Shane Steichen and Richardson are a perfect marriage, and I think they will be, there's not enough around him to win enough games right now.
And you wonder what it takes, because clearly Anthony Richardson has the buy-in for his NFL career and whatnot. But watching this situation unfold, a guy who's a leader in the locker room, who's been really good player on the team, have to go through this. Like, what kind of feeling mitigates through the rest of the roster, especially from the quarterback, from the standpoint, especially when they're going to run the ball so much. And you would like to have that centerpiece of your offense, but you can't even get him in there because of this situation. So, like, as much as we don't need to talk about it because we have talked about it, it's so central, I think, to the development, or at least the first season of Anthony Richardson, that it's hard to look past.
Looking at the depth chart around Richardson, if you take Taylor out of it, and at the very least he's out for the first 4 weeks, Zach Moss, Deion Jackson, and a rookie, Evan Hall.
I think Hall's the starter.
Yeah, you have Michael Pittman. Okay, we could live with Michael Pittman. He's good. He could be great. Alec Pierce, second-round pick last year. Isaiah McKenzie there now in the slot. I don't know. We got to see is the offensive line going to bounce back after last year. And does the team have the stomach to go through the growing pains of Anthony Richardson, which there will be, there has to be, unless he's a phenom that we haven't seen in a long time. He's going to be learning on the job.
Well, they're also going to be trailing. That defense, like the secondary, is maybe the most questionable secondary in the entire NFL.
It's all like
right
undrafted
now.
players and rookies.
It's crazy. They have a lot of roster holes that even if Richardson wins offensive rookie, he could win offensive rookie of the year and they could win 6 games.
I just see
Little
ownership,
Sam Bradford action.
like ownership, front office, coaching staff, not all on the same page.
OC, Jim Bob Cooter.
JBC.
Yeah, you got to take that.
I just wanted to say JBC. I don't know. He's a fun guy.
The Houston Texans. Houston's offense ranked dead last in expected points added per play last year. Okay, that leads to the number 2 overall pick, C.J. Stroud. Should have been the first pick. They botched that, but, Stroud could be great. Anyway, new coaches, a new quarterback, some new weapons. Hopefully that changes things. Bobby Slowick. He's from the Shanahan coaching tree, which is nice. All that's good. So you have one of the most accurate quarterbacks in college joining a Shanahan system. I'm at least excited to watch what the Texans have on offense. Even if the weapons aren't high end, you have a promising running back behind the rookie. At least the Texans, for the first time since Deshaun Watson before the scandal hit, there's something to watch on this offense.
I think there's also, like we talked a couple weeks ago about, D'Amico Ryans, and is he safe in our hot butts rankings? Like, yes, I think he is. I don't trust this ownership group, to your point, Dan, but I think there's some patience, and there needs to be patience with C.J. Stroud. We didn't see a whole lot of him in the preseason, but the one thing that was consistent with his college tape was, man, when he throws, he has a couple throws a game where you're just like, there aren't that many people that throw the ball with that amount of beauty. And, I do think that, he's a high-growth potential quarterback. No quarterback in a 2-year window in the Big Ten history had more touchdowns than he did. So it's like he's done it. He played a lot of college football.
But how quickly are these guys going to get open? I thought the offensive line was shaping up to potentially be a real strength. But Juice Scruggs is a little hurt right now. They had to trade for a guard. Titus Howard is hurt right now. They actually lost their center, their original center for the season, who maybe wasn't going to start. But right off the bat, they're down about 4 offensive linemen. You hate to see that in front of a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, you lose Kenyon Green to IR in a preseason game. That is as bad as it gets.
Especially considering where this roster was a few seasons ago, even to last year. They're going to be thin, because they just have to come back from what was a team that essentially didn't seem like it was putting its best effort forward. And so to suddenly go to, hey, the Texans are trying now, you're going to have some guys really just stay clean, stay healthy, and to have that happen, it's going to hurt a little bit, but at least we do need to consider where they were.
Well, one reason to hire D'Amico Ryans is it's been proven it's not that hard historically to go from a pretty poor defense to an above average defense. A coach, energy, tackling, fundamentals, certainly some talent in the secondary with Petrie and Ward, and you got Anderson up front. Like, they could go to a frisky defense right off the bat. I think that's
his
that's
predecessor, Robert Saleh, did the same thing in New York, so he can do that. The skill players, Xavier Hutchinson, a little bit of a dart throw, Tank Dell, wide receiver. Are you in the Robert Woods isn't actually cooked bandwagon? If you are, maybe you feel good.
I don't feel good, but listen. Oh.
All right, Greg, sharpen your fangs. Here is Patrick Claybon on the defending division champion Jaguars.
So the Jags made some cuts, most notably Doug Peterson cut his son yesterday. He got back on the practice squad. He's better than me. I wouldn't be doing that.
Hey, son, you go.
Yeah, you can go ahead and fire me.
Tough convo.
They didn't cut Parker Washington, a 6-rounder at wideout. They're going to carry 7 wideouts as of right now. Doug loves his offense.
Not his son.
Yeah, he's back on the practice squad.
I think he loves his son. That's why he's on the practice squad. He was not getting a lot of NFL interest for a few years before this.
Doug Peterson hates his own son. Use that as the headline.
My only question about the Jags offense is what's to do in the meantime while Cam Robinson is dealing with this suspension. The question is defense. They didn't make any changes in the secondary. They were able to overcome that towards the end, but they'll need those guys to grow a whole lot. Is there enough growth in what's there, like guys like Campbell in that secondary, to be what they need to be to win the division.
I thought it was a weird offseason because, yes, you exited, January thinking this is one of the new teams in the AFC. They're completely set on one side of the ball in many ways. Dwayne Smoot, Arden Key, 2 of their top 3 sack leaders from a year ago, exit. They don't draft a defensive player till the 4th round. It's like other teams that are rebuilding in 1 year. It's like you pour all your resources into your weakness, and the Jaguars did the opposite.
They're building on strength. They're kind of like the old Colts system. And it might not be a bad idea in this division. I'm just down relative to consensus because I think there's a chance, to Patrick's point, that they could be a bottom 5 defense. I just think they're very thin at edge rusher, not like a very promising cornerback group, and boomer bust at linebacker. Maybe it all works out, but they didn't really show that they were like coached that well on defense last year.
To your point, the Trayvon Walker move is not looking good right now. This is a big year, too, for him. Number 1 overall pick last year when you could have had Hutchinson. Calvin Ridley's there. And you know what? I don't think we talk about him enough. Trevor Lawrence is there.
Yes.
And Lawrence really made a huge step last year. And I think, you want to talk about dark horse and in the MVP race. Like, Lawrence very much has a chance to become a superstar this year. And that is going to lead to a blowout in this division.
We don't know that, Trevor Lawrence has maxed out. I mean, he had no year 1, obviously. So last year was essentially like the first look, and he almost had like 2 seasons in one. And that second one, he and the offense were among the best in the entire conference. It's like, what he's on level 7 of 10. If he gets better, then there's a big problem in the South.
I think that's the biggest question. Can he be a top 5 quarterback now for a 17-game schedule? It's possible.
Well, we saw all of it in the comebacks against Dallas and the one in the playoffs against the Chargers, but they had to come back in the first place, right? They built those deficits because they couldn't necessarily stop those offenses early, and I just wonder, has that changed enough?
Right. So to me, yes, he's in his 3rd year, but to me that makes me think he's going to be better in year 6 and 7, and I'm not as convinced he's as elite out of the gate as Burrow, Herbert, Lamar, some of the guys we've seen come up lately.
Well, the gate was locked for the first year. But...
Timeout. Not me.
That was
him.
from Marc
Sessler, right in the throat.
I mean, this is the timeout that you saved by not.
No, I'm winging it,
clearly.
really. I'm like Todd Bowles, real confused, need somebody by my side. I just want to clarify my stance. I get a kick out of you not liking the Jaguars. I don't love the Jaguars. In fact, you look at who are the 4 kind of favorites in the divisions in the AFC. It's the Bills. I guess the Bengals would be the popular pick overall. The Jaguars definitely in the South, and the Chiefs in the West. I would say the Jaguars of those 4 are definitely beneath.
I think you just hit on it for me. You can't just pick all the favorites. And those other 3 I feel good about.
Well, you can.
You could.
Yeah.
But you won't.
I'm going to do it.
I don't want to. I truly do believe there's a special magic sauce in Tennessee that, like, at the end of the year, you're going to be like, how did they win 10 games? Like, there's an organizational belief that I have in them that I think
they've done that, so that's not outrageous.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see where the Jaguars come down, because I think they are beneficiaries of a much weaker division than the
schedule. You're right. I mean, there's opportunity for Tennessee and Jacksonville to have better records than people expect, just because the Colts and Texans could be that bad.
Didn't the Chiefs ride for months at a time over the past couple years with like a bottom 5 defense, and they're still winning and detonating? I'm just not as concerned about the defensive statistics when you've got what they have on offense.
And Doug Peterson's building something there. He built something in Philly with Howie.
Literally a new facility opened this summer.
Thank God.
And his son's
Miller
there.
Electric Complex.
All right. Let's head to the AFC West. I'm out of the doubting or even softly questioning Mahomes and Andy Reid game. It's a waste of time. I don't care if Travis Kelce's a year older, or Kadarius Toney is a stretch at wide receiver 1, or if Sky Moore is untested, or that they lost their left tackle in free agency, or
kind of sounds like doubting.
Isaiah Pacheco, is he ready really to lead the backfield? I don't care. Whatever.
A lot of doubts.
Here's a crazy stat. I don't care about any of those things. Here's a crazy stat from Football Almanac. Last year, the Chiefs saw their offensive DVOA improve from 13.6% to 26.2%, and their passing DVOA specifically jump up from 34.7 to 41.1. That was with Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdes-Scantling as the top 2 wideouts, and Tyreek Hill putting up 1,700 in Miami. It's stupid. The defense is young and perhaps perhaps punched above their weight class a little bit during their Super Bowl run. Then again, they also have maybe just found their footing, and they could be even better. Chris Jones, I think he'll be there, L'Jarius Sneed, and then you have young guns like Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis, who really stepped up down the stretch. So, yeah, the offense above reproach, and the defense has everything necessary to get to a floor of, like, middle of the pack. That's all you need. My only question, who do the Chiefs play in the AFC Championship game this year?
I'm with you 100%. I mean,
according to you, the Bengals, because you said they're in. Didn't you say it's a fact that what are they?
Well, let me.
They were the best team in the conference, I believe.
Hang on,
the 1 seed.
But you can ticket Kansas City.
So there's your
for
answer.
that game. Absolutely, and like this is why Andy Reid is unquestionably the best coach in football for me, because last year at this time in this various exercise, we were like, whoa, are the Chiefs, what are they going to be? Can we trust them anymore? It's like they refashioned their attack in one season and changed the way they do it. Now I see them as more like they might have games where they're a power run team with Isaiah Pacheco, and they've got the best interior offensive line in the entire conference and can beat you in new ways. And I simply trust him to take Mahomes to take guys like Richie James, Kadarius Toney when he's healthy, and the rest of the crew and just find it through the air. Like, there's no weakness because Patrick Mahomes takes the weakness and turns it into a strength in 1 week. Break his ankle, he's running 45 yards again you in the next,
right.
Come on.
I think he's going to have to turn, those tackles, I guess, could be a question. Juwan Taylor, right tackle, he should be fine. Donovan Smith, left tackle. That's new, but there's not much. I think you hit on some of the names that are key. To me, the key for the Chiefs staying where they are is they continue to find these young guys who aren't highly drafted that turn into really good players. McDuffie was a first-round pick, but can they develop McDuffie? Can Moore step up? Can Karlaftis step up? Because really he was okay last year. He wasn't great.
He had 7 sacks after
can
week 12.
Nick Bolton be like a star? Keep developing these young guys.
Yeah, we saw Justin Ross a lot in the preseason. I'm starting to kind of perk my ears up about what he's able to accomplish there. I do worry, like Patrick Mahomes having to come back from ankle injuries and play through that. You want to see less of that.
Sure.
The fact that it has to happen, but we're in Belichick land with retreads. We got Matt Nagy back, offensive coordinator. It's the parallels.
Look, he wasn't looking. I think you got away with it.
Yeah, I was trying to sneak it in there. I looked at the clock.
Oh.
All right.
Justin wanted to miss that
No,
shot.
I got a huge clock to the left. I'm watching you guys over here. All right.
Our clock is not reflective, I guess.
I think it's fair for the producers to start to get a little, irritated with us, and they sounded a little irritated right there.
It's good.
I'm giving it leeway. It's a weird chime. It's not really precise at the zero.
A lot of excuses.
Hey.
It's 2 excuses in 30 seconds. Oh, right in the throat, in the face. All right, we move on to the Los Angeles Superchargers.
Okay, so
Patrick.
the Chargers just picked up a cast of other teams' discarded linebackers. Brandon Staley's defense was 21st in points allowed last year, finished 28th in yards allowed, dead last in yards per attempt allowed last year at 5.4. If that trend continues, what change does Brandon Staley make, or is the only change left to make regarding the Chargers defense the head coaching position itself?
Whoa. When you say yards per attempt, you mean on the ground?
Yeah.
Okay, yards per carry. Well, that I guess answers the question I would ask of them is like, why not the Chargers? I think they look pretty good on paper. Defensively, you're right. Have they done enough to? It's not really much of a different crew in terms of stopping the run. They're just going to have to coach it better. They're going to have to be healthier out of Bosa, a little better out of Mack. I think linebacker they can certainly improve. But to me, it's hard to see a lot of holes on this team.
No, I mean, they poured all that money into the defense a year ago and got all these pieces that, they knew Staley, if you're, Mack, like all these guys, and it was a disaster. They were like that had to be one of the biggest disappointments in the AFC was LA's defense under Staley, and like there's a lot of pressure there, but I think a lot of it is that on the other side of the ball, that I think the Kellen Moore and Justin Herbert thing is going to work. And, I mean, so much of what was depressing about this team a year ago was how they handled early downs, how Justin Herbert was kind of pocketed in. I think you're going to unleash him. He's going to be healthy. He was not healthy for a month plus 2 months of last year. That's where this thing starts.
I think they get the reverse, like, tax that I just was talking about the Chiefs. Like, Greg, your quote just now, I think they look better on paper. It's like this happens every year, and then something happens either by bad luck or poor play or slumps. It's like, is this the year the Chargers finally shut up and just take this roster and maximize it? I'd like to see it, but I'm so used to it not working out that you just assume that it won't.
I think the difference to me is the offensive line on paper again, but it's based on how these players have performed. Looks great. Like I think this could be like they have a chance. I'm sure they don't have odds in Vegas for this, but I would take the odds that like the Chargers finish first in DVOA for offense, just because they probably would be the 9th or 10th favorite. And to me, they have a chance. They are that talented at every position on offense and have a quarterback who I think can, compete for an MVP right now.
You know what spooked me a little bit on fantasy draft days was Austin Eckler. 20 touchdowns, 18 touchdowns. How many running backs have 3 straight years with that amount of workload and that success? Is he going to be able to keep it up in what's a pivotal season for him?
Probably not, but they've showed a little more of like a power north-south running game. I think the other guys will get more involved.
But again, even with Joe Lombardi, the offense did everything it needed to do to have a lead in the playoffs, and the defense let them down.
I think to answer your question, the answer is if the defense doesn't work, they should get rid of him.
Defensive mastermind. Got it back. That was my one from last time.
The Raiders, Gregg Rosenthal.
All right. Are we buying any defensive improvement from the Raiders? One of the most surprising storylines to me of the preseason was how consistently good they looked in practice and in the preseason, and to the point where I'm starting to buy into it. You start off with Max Crosby, Chandler Jones, and Tyree Wilson, who's now come back and looked pretty good, and a coordinator, if you don't remember, Patrick Graham, who's had some big ups in the NFL and big downs, but I would describe his system as maybe a little too complicated. Maybe year one you got through a little bit of that, and maybe he's got players who know what to do now. Because if they're a decent defense, if we're buying it, is anyone buying it? They could be competitive at least.
Not really.
Okay. Because the players don't look great on paper, but defense is more than just like the roster. You know
I just
what I mean?
feel like if you lose, like you go about 2 or 3 deep on this defense. If you lose Max Crosby for 2 months, or you lose Marcus Peters, like
you can say that about any team.
Yeah, but there's
much.
teams that I think you could say on defense, you've got like the Jets defensive line. We talk about layers of players. Like this is like a really Jenga piece type defense with 1 or 2 guys, and like also, I guess that's one area where like preseason practices or preseason games and like camp practices where they're looking good. All right,
I definitely, to Mark's cynicism around the Raiders, like putting too much in the preseason on how the defense looks, but you're saying also camp reports and what the beat reporters are saying.
More about the practices and stuff. Now, granted, the first
few
weeks,
offense,
weeks of practice were against the offense, but it was partly the 2 joint practices too that they were just like, okay, I don't know. Well, I don't think they're terrible.
Yeah, there's so much talk about the Raiders being one of the worst teams in the league. Is there a path to them surprising and hanging around in the wild card race, Patrick?
Yeah, I think that might be a little bit too far. It's just a team in transition. And every single year it's become more accepted that defense isn't going to be as sticky, and there's a little bit easier to turn a defense around. But I think maybe we should give more credit to the defenses who are consistent year over year because of that. And I don't know if I've seen enough to make that determination.
No, they need Jimmy G to be better than Derek Carr. I think there is a world where Jimmy G is better than Derek. Actually, I expect him to be better than Derek Carr was for the Raiders.
People are so low on Jimmy G.
Do you expect him to be better than Derek Carr this year?
I think
about the same, yeah.
I don't like this.
But I expect them to be an upgrade from what they had a year ago, and they still have Devontae Adams. They have Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, and Devontae Adams, who we're months removed from saying that he's simply going to have to buy into this and try to be as optimistic as possible. I just think there's a couple of like ticking time bombs all over this place, and it starts with Josh McDaniels and his people skills.
We did the kids draft.
Yes,
Dan's kids, my kids are in the same fantasy. Devontae Adams is still sitting there, like late in the second, like the radio is out there.
Radioactive. Josh Jacobs is back. Did anybody say it? I don't give up. I mean, one of the best players in the league last year. Back and happy and paid.
I'm not happy.
Hey, man, no effect. Wait, I'm disrespecting the game.
Yeah, well, you are.
Can't do it. But, Josh Jacobs
You were the one that made the biggest speech about respecting the Trank.
I know. I just wanted to say Josh Jacobs is back.
I think the message is being relayed. And I'm on your side, by
but
the
it's
way.
just
You don't
like
be shooting me.
Well, I did say it.
So
and
Jimmy
we talked about it on the
He's gonna
show.
run out of darts.
All right, last time out. Jimmy Garoppolo is better than Derek Carr?
I think he will be an upgrade from Derek Carr with the Raiders in 2022.
Devontae Adams, one of the top 5 wide receivers in the sport?
Yes.
Yes.
Josh Jacobs, at least the Josh Jacobs, one of the top running backs in the sport.
They had all this
Max
last
Crosby, one of the best edge rushers in the sport. I'm saying there is
the highest ticket price in the sport.
Sure. There is I think a case to be made that there's enough talent, top tier talent, to maybe lift all boats to mediocrity. I'm just saying, like
to mediocrity.
Raise the boats
to maybe get
mediocrity.
That's better than the old Reagan slogan.
But not every team needs to have like Super Bowl aspirations every year. Like if this is a transition year, if they can fight for the wild card in January, even if they fall short, I think maybe that's success for this team. Because I think Garoppolo's a bridge. I think that's all he is. And then they can figure out what their next big step is at QB.
They fit perfectly as a team that will win just enough games to disappoint in terms of the standings, but also be out of the running for one of the great college quarterbacks in next year's draft. That's a blueprint.
Yeah, but I thought you said they're going to be horrendous.
I think they could be. I'm saying that all these things that you're ticketing off, which they had last year, by the way, come to fruition in a more glorious way than last year. They win 7 games.
It's a tough conference.
It's a tough one.
It's a tough conference.
It's a tough conference. We got one more team?
Mm-hmm.
We got one more team. And that team is the Denver Broncos with Marc Sessler.
All right, last year's coaching staff disaster, much renowned in some way. But to this year's Sean Payton regime, okay, I think it might be the biggest leap I can recall in sort of like a talent jump, maybe outside of like the Urban Meyer thing that we talked about in Jacksonville. And we don't know what will happen with Russell Wilson. But I think, number one, the only evidence we have is that his body looks like he went and got in shape, and I think it's going to solve some of the issues from
very
here.
hot. Very hot.
He looks very tight.
Ciara, congratulations.
Absolutely. It's a good job by her. But I do have this. 20 years of evidence telling me that Sean Payton is better than 90% of other coaches in the NFL. And so I think even if Russ is somewhere between like good Russ from a while back and last year's Russ, this is an AFC team that has an offensive line that is not perfect, but they're kind of built to maul people on the ground. And I trust Sean Payton to find ways outside of just Russell Wilson to win games. I feel like I had this weird arrow up on the Denver Broncos after really being bored by the whole concept for months. Am I a fool to think this?
I don't see it unless coaching is just that important. They're a great test. I mean, he said it's one of the worst. He's one of the worst coaching jobs in history, according to Sean Payton. Which is like, look, if you don't win more than 5 or 6 games, then you're now the worst coaching job in history, Sean Payton. I just don't see a lot of position groups when I go through them that are above average. It doesn't look like a great roster to me. They have they have good safeties. Justin Simmons, you have Patrick Surtain in the secondary. After that, it's like, what am I excited about on this team?
I don't know
other than the coach.
I don't know if it's fair to, even if they didn't have a good year this year, to put it on Payton, because you got to build the program. I mean, even Sean Payton.
Well, if they win 5 games after he says winning 5 games was the worst coaching job in history,
tough sitch.
I'm putting it on.
It's a tough sitch, but remember, before they hit on that big draft in 2017. He had back-to-back 7 and 9 years with New Orleans. I mean, it's not like he's never failed in his life or had teams that were didn't reach the playoffs. So, like, it's
all I'd say about
over
those 7 and 9 teams was that the offense was still Sean Payton's offense. Those defenses were an absolute disaster during that stretch. But I think the most delicious thing, if he ripped the coaching staff that won 5 games, then he won 5 games. That's just.
He doesn't have Drew Brees anymore either. Like,
and that was
interesting to see.
And that was in an era in the NFC South where you had like Matt Ryan and Julio at their peak. You had Cam coming up, and so there was explanation. But also now in the AFC West, it's not necessarily an easy situation there. I think they can clearly be better than they were last year, but is there enough improvement to kind of heal all those wounds from when we were saying, oh, the Broncos are going to be Super Bowl contenders, and they were miserable? I don't want to get tripped.
Broncos Raiders week 1, sneaky fun. I don't know what I'm getting.
It's over, so I can talk about this now. People love to chicken and egg Belichick Brady. But we don't really talk about Sean Payton and all his success coming with Drew Brees, one of the greatest passers who's ever lived. How's he going to do without Drew Brees?
I think it's partly because his record without Drew Brees was so good in those last few years. Although that was true of Belichick in the Brady era, too. His record was great without.
But he didn't coach up Teddy, coached up Winston. It's like, I don't know. Like, I think Sean Payton is not for me in a world where suddenly I think without one player, he's got no ability to coach.
Right. I don't like that argument. That's why I don't do that with Belichick. I'm just saying, like, that was a massive advantage that he had. Drew Brees was an incredible player, and you could also say, well, Drew Brees didn't become an incredible player until he got to New Orleans. That's fair, too. It'll just be fun to see Sean Payton with a fresh start, a new QB, whether it is Russell Wilson or who's the fellow that they recruited over from
Jared
Stidham, or whoever comes next down the line.
If Wilson fails, though, Sean Payton will not be taking any credit for that. Like, I guarantee there won't be any,
I just called Jared Stidham a fellow.
I always am a little wary because of the historical precedent of a coach taking a huge contract as he's hitting, he's getting to his 60s with a lot of previous success. In NFL history, that hasn't generally worked for the teams doing it. Coaches in a new spot after they've already achieved a lot. And oh, by the way, he was like their third or fourth choice.
Like
that part was weird. That part was
weird. My mind goes to Jimmy Johnson's Dolphins that I believe the last game he coached, like Dan Marino lost in the playoffs like 71-10 to the Jaguars. Remember?
Right. There's also like a very, depending on who you are and where you stand on what a head coach should be doing, disturbing draft time video that rolled out. Also,
that was fine.
A completely, of course you would say that. I'm just saying a completely insane, unhinged interview in which he wasn't wrong about Nathaniel Hackett, but like completely like the type of interview you give when maybe you're not thinking clearly. We good? Everything good? Are we good?
I mean, it's wild to say that it's
Hey, Pat,
unhinged,
we good?
We literally agree with everything that he said.
It's like not just about what he said. It's, who he said it to, and then not having the good sense to understand that was going to make just massive waves that him and his team didn't need to deal with.
Well, I hope like everybody has cried sufficient tears over it at this point because it was a whole thing, and I can't remember anybody saying he was wrong. Everybody's like, "Well, just don't." You
broke
don't
a code.
It's a code.
Yeah.
Like, is this baseball now? Like, I'm so confused by it. Like,
well, I'm not going to acknowledge Sean on that.
He's giving off, and I believe he is a difference maker as an offensive coach, and I believe his Bill Parcells in autumn vibes that he's giving off, a little Dallas, a little Miami, even as an exec. Like, I love that. The NFL can use that. Let's have some fun.
It's
well, now that he's been sufficiently punished for it, no coach is going to say anything.
He apologized too, and he was going to maybe reach out as well. I don't know if that ever happened.
Well, not according to Nathaniel Hackett.
By the way, it doesn't have to be, Patrick, unwritten code or whatever, but like the reason why you don't do it is because like if you follow the sport, it's really hard to be a coach. It's a really tough life. You bounce around, you grind through different levels.
But if we criticize Hackett to the nth degree, so why can't other colleagues do it? Why not?
For the reason I'm trying to make, but you interrupted me, is that he is also a coach, and you understand when things go sideways unless you don't care about it and your ego is so out of control that you speak
that could
shoot
be the
off
case.
the lip to USA Today, which is fine. I thought it was fun too. I love the story. I don't care that he's connected to the Jets now. I think it's great, but I'm just saying, is everything all right, Sean?
It is in the realm of possibility that he's like external based, high ego individual that like doesn't care about all these codes and things.
But if you get the guys open and Russ hits them, none of it matters.
Right.
That's my question. It's like, how much does it necessarily matter? It's a thing to talk about, but like, what impact does it have?
But
if he's not okay,
I say if you're gonna, if you're gonna take a breather from coaching and go take a studio gig pre-game, like, where's that fire then?
Right,
that was
exactly.
Some of the most vanilla comments I've ever heard.
There is something to that. It's annoying. Like he could have had a different tone about it, but there is something gutless about it that like we're fine with all of us can say it, but they can't say it about each other. It's kind of similar how like we can't say certain things about other people in broadcasting that we actually hold our tongue on some level about those sort of things because it's like it's in the.
I don't remember a certain broadcaster coming up to you at a coach's breakfast and shaking you down and wagging his finger in your face.
It's happened.
We'll leave it right there.
That's how Gregg knows where Sean Payton was when he gave that interview.
That's why Gregg's filling out that
mind
T-shirt.
state.
That's ready for the next time.
But yes, in summation, I'm happy Sean Payton's back too. He's a character. He's from the Parcells world, and I love Parcells and those guys that are a little rough around the edges. Everyone else seems to be so streamlined and smooth these days. Maybe I saw Nate Hackett with his daughters after the Taylor Swift concert also.
We're past hating on him too. He seems like a likable, fellow.
He's
Well,
a great
He
dude.
took
Yeah.
he took him to Vegas.
I mean, past
Nice
move.
might be
Nick Hackett's
exaggerating.
cool.
If they're the 24th ranked offense in week 4, we won't be past it. So it's all based on how things go.
Hi, my name's Nathaniel Hackett. Thanks. It's nice to see you out here.
All right, coming up tomorrow is around the NFC in 48 minutes. We could not have done it literally. Well, we could have. It would have been an inferior program without Patrick Claybon, who said it all.
Well, thanks, Dan.
Any
I
final
appreciate
words?
Just go out there and love football and love Nathaniel Hackett, who's a very nice man.
And check out Patrick hosting this year on Game Day View.
Get the plug in.
Our pick show is back.
Oh, you're plugging yourself and making it seem like
Yeah,
it's
no,
bad.
that
It's,
was-
it's Greg's show.
But he's the
it's
new.
a Rainmaker
No, it's
show.
it's
let's be honest
Cynthia's.
with you.
It's Cynthia and Patrick guy, but now he's the host.
We've been down
That's
this
fun.
avenue before.
What else? Your NFL fantasy, of
Yeah,
course.
we got fantasy tonight, 6 o'clock Eastern, right here on NFL Network.
I feel like you're a valued member of the team. I think you're held in good regard with the people upstairs.
Well, that's because of the people on the floors with me, which includes you guys, anybody who's ever
What a
given
love
me
fest.
a chance to do things. We go all the way back to TD and Dave Damashek, put me on the
Get
first
outta here.
podcast ever. Oh my God!
Hit the music. You're right. Sheck gave us our start.
That's true. Talk about a great guy.
Dave listens to every episode of this show. That is not true. Heed the call.